Today we're going to be going over some advanced tips for your base in Rust. With the addition of the seismic sensor, you can now automatically close your doors when you're getting raided. This is especially useful if you leave your garage doors open. We're using our seismic sensor here to trigger an AND switch, which will allow more power to pass through to a splitter so that the pass-through on all of our door controllers can automatically close themselves. And while we're talking about doors, you should always have double doors or single doors that you close all the time no matter what, and then the rest of your doors are garage doors. This way you can leave your garage doors open, use the seismic sensor when you're getting raided to automatically close them, and then also it will allow you to move through your base a lot quicker. One of the biggest luxuries that you can have later on into the wipe is an oil refinery inside of your base. And you cannot pick these things up once you put them down, and they're pretty hard to break. So remember that by rotating it twice, the storage adapter slot will face towards you. The best place to put these is in a square foundation below a jump up like I'm showing here. Oil refineries also fit within 2 triangle foundations, and a use for this is if you have a 2x1 that you're not using anymore, you can expand it quickly into this footprint and then have a place to put your oil refinery that's safe. If you're a newer player, you might not know that you can heal with comfort if your food and water is high enough. So when designing your base, next to where you cook your food, you should save space for a chair or a bear rug, which will bring you up to 100% comfort for you to be able to heal without wasting tons of food or meds. You should have multiple exits to your base, and when you have a bag in your main base, you'll have to go something like 8 foundations away to place another bag down in an inconspicuous area so that you can sneak back to one of the entrances to your base, and then have a re-kit locker or a box nearby so that if you're getting online raided, you can have an easy way to respawn and get re-kitted. And by having multiple exits to the roof and the outside, you can easily maneuver through your base so that raiders can't just lock off one point of your base and you're screwed if you die. So what I like to do is have my bag next to my TC with the kit, and then bags on the outside of every exit that I have. In this case, it's 2. And then I'll have doors that I keep closed all of the time, and then a locker next to those doors with like a hazmat and a shotgun. The next thing that you should have in your base for many reasons is a simple auto sorter. This allows you to have dedicated boxes that you deposit loot within that get sorted between other boxes, which you can then control the output of to things like furnaces and automatically refilling lockers. I'm going to be creating a dedicated video in the future for a fully fleshed out auto sorting system, but basically it's just a drop box with a conveyor that goes into this type of a room right here, which we call a buffer box room. All of those boxes are linked together and connected to a line of splitters, and then from those splitters you pull out specific items with the filters on these conveyors. So you can filter things like weapons and ammo and clothes. And then anything that is not filtered out remains in the buffer room. And basically the buffer room sucks all of the loot out from your drop boxes so you can have your drop boxes wherever you want. And then you can do things like connect the output on all of the boxes that are sorted to a conveyor. And then you can call specific things to this box like an AK, and then it'll bring it to you instead of having to go to the loot room. But if you don't want to wait and want to learn the basics, you can go check out my 2x2 starter design. In that video, I go over a basic auto sorting system, but there's a lot more things that you can do with this system, which I'll cover in a future video. If you've got a shooting floor in your base, there should be some sort of way that you can retake control of it during an online raid if the raiders are in there. You could put windows facing into your shooting floor. You could do things with these quarter walls right here so that you can bounce grenades into the door that you're about to enter through so that you can clear it without having to look at it. And if your base has multiple exits to your roof, you can have a window like this with an embrasure in front of it so that you can check to see if the coast is clear, pick up the window and kill anybody if they're up here, and then swap across to the other side of the base so that you can use a different door to get into your shooting floor from the other side to hopefully throw the raiders off guard. Things like the seismic sensor circuit that we talked about at the beginning of the video require power, but it's not always going to include components that are easily obtainable. So until then, you're definitely going to find some small batteries and solar panels, and you should get these charging up right away so that you're good to go and don't have any issues in the future when you're setting up your circuit. On every floor of your base, you should have small boxes with loot inside of it for raid defense. This includes some wood, stone, metal, building plan, hammer, a couple med syringes to heal with, grenades, and smokes. You use the smokes so that you can seal off a breach, and then you use the grenades to try to push into an area that people are holding so that you can seal it off. If you're not recycling them for tarp to get cloth, you should place some water catchers down in your compound. This is not only useful for hydration if you're far from a water source, but you can also connect it to a barrel if you just put it down a little lower than the water catchers are. And then you don't need any electricity, it'll just automatically fill up with gravity, and you can use it in the future for drinking water or to water your plants. Speaking of which, you should always have a dedicated space in your base where you can throw some planter boxes down if you need to. At one point or another, it's going to be super hard for you to get cloth, or you just might want to make some rad tees. Even if you're not super into the whole farming thing, it doesn't really have to get much more complicated than throw a small planter box down in your base, plant a couple hemp seeds, and water it. Just make sure you don't forget to throw a light on top of it though, because the plants will need light and water to grow, but that's about it. Something that is extremely fun in Rust is defending an online raid, and sometimes what I'll do if I'm not getting an online raid is I'll throw all of my rockets and explosives into a vending machine and broadcast it, selling it for blood. You should keep in mind though that this is going to attract experienced players that are searching for things like this. But if you're having one of those wipes where nobody even attempts to raid you, this is a good way to try to get people from across the map to come visit you. Another useful thing that you can do with vending machines is transfer loot across the map from the drone shops that you can find at Outpost and Bandit Camp. And if you're on a modded server, you can find these at Fishing Village and ranches sometimes. So what you do is you pick a random item that you're always going to have on you all the time, or something like wood that's really easily accessible to get, and then you sell that for something like an AK or metal face mask or sulfur. And if it's a resource, you can put it up to 10,000. So if you're all the way across the map and you just made a crazy play, you got like 15 AKs on you, then you can just get some scrap, recycle, and then, pay for the shipment to send it all the way back to your base without having to run across the map. This is kind of cheesy, but it's good to know this. If you ever see a clan doing it, you can try to figure out where they're farming at and sending it from, which is usually near an outpost or bandit. And just in case you're extremely curious on more things that you can do with your auto sorting system, this is a very simple solution for auto refill lockers. It just requires one conveyor connected to a slot on each locker, and then the filter on that will automatically fill up that slot in that locker. And then when you're setting up the filter on the conveyor, remember to set things like clothing and the weapons to a maximum of 1. The clothes will automatically fill up, but if you don't put a maximum of 1, it might put duplicates of the clothing inside of the slots. And then you're going to want to set your med syringes to something like 6. And your ammo to something like 80 if you're using an SMG. And this red line is connected to the output of all of my boxes that are auto sorted. So I'm going to take a splitter from the last combiner, which will allow me to access all of the loot in every loot room, and then I'm going to use that as the input on my conveyor to pull the kits into the locker. And then you can take the pass-through on the storage adapter to another storage adapter, and it'll also fill up that next locker with that kit. The reason that we're only filling up one slot on this locker is because if you use multiple storage adapters and link them together like this, it'll just jumble up all of the kits and you'll have to sort it manually, and it's a mess. Plus, these are going to automatically refill once you use them anyway. So if you did want to fill up the second slot, you're just going to put another conveyor down with another input connected to the output of all of your boxes, and then set a different filter on it. And if you don't have all your boxes outputs connected together like I do here, you can just place extra storage adapters on the boxes that contain the clothes, weapons, ammo, and meds, and then combine them all together and use that as your input instead of how I have it set up here, which is a lot more complicated. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you knew all of these already, feel free to scream at me in the comments, calling me an idiot. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike if you didn't, and I'll catch you in the next one.